So we're starting to see the first lot of data and some of the preliminary reports about the Online Safety Act. And they're all lying. Now, bear with me. We'll cover it all in today's video. So the Online Safety Act, as we've discussed in previous videos, is split into two parts. You've got the Online Safety Act 2023, which was basically a soft setup of the Online Safety Act, adding protections in place where companies like Twitter had to give people the ability to hide or report content. To be honest, the Online Safety Act 2023 was pretty soft, but then they updated the 2023 Online Safety Act in July of this year, and that's where we're seeing things such as age verification. Now, the recent article by The Guardian actually splits up a couple of individual things that we need to dissect and break apart. But the first thing is that the Online Safety Act 2023 has been proven to not work. They didn't see any noticeable difference from people accessing explicit content online. In fact, in their surveys of the general public, people felt like they saw more explicit content. Now, with the Online Safety Act that they've just introduced requiring age verification, there's a lot of publications coming out and people, well, to be honest, government-based media, talking about the various search traffic to various corn websites. I have to say corn, by the way, it's YouTube. You know what I mean, though. So according to The Guardian, and actually a few of the sources, and they've linked all their sources in their article, it's linked down below if you want to read it. Pornhub's traffic went down by nearly half the amount due to the Online Safety Act. And then it goes on to talk about how it's, you know, prioritizing, putting children's safety first and how it's so much safer, blah, blah, blah. Then they went on to speak about things like VPNs, and we'll get back to that in a minute. But they completely failed to mention the mirror sites. In fact, there's many Pornhub mirror websites, which basically redirects the traffic through another route. And yeah, this is the traffic for 3 of those websites. That fills the deficit. In fact, overall, that brings the traffic for Pornhub to about 3.5% to 4% more than it was in the month before. In fact, if anything, it looks like the Online Safety Act has promoted the consumption of that content. I can forgive journalists talking about this because journalists will be as journalists do. When you have like official bodies referencing this and about how search traffic has come down and how it means the Online Safety Act is working, we're totally forgetting the amount of people that have moved over to the deep web, the amount of people that are now using Tor browsers and sending their traffic through Tor and using mirror sites. They're totally pretending that those things don't exist and people aren't doing it. And then they also reference VPNs. Now, if you are looking for a good VPN, private internet access at the link down below. It allows you to access content as if you're in another country. So, for example, US Netflix is better than the UK Netflix. Also works on multiple devices. And with my link down below, you get 86% off and 4 months free. So with VPNs, they're basically acknowledging the fact that they do not understand the effects of VPNs on this data so far, because the thing is they can't collect data from traffic from the UK if someone's using a VPN on their phone and they're accessing a website from South America. They don't know how many people are actually accessing these websites from the UK, so VPNs are basically obscuring all the data. Now, there is 2 sides to this. There's the fact that VPNs are great for us as users and they give us privacy, but there's also the fact that technically speaking, using a VPN is going to damage our fight against the Online Safety Act, because at the moment, to the completely biased media and organizations such as Ofcom and the UK government, to them, it looks like people aren't accessing this sort of content anymore. It looks like the Online Safety Act's working. They can plausibly go into the Houses of Commons and say, well, the data's there, it's working, less people are visiting these websites from the UK, totally negating the fact that people will be using VPNs to access this sort of content. But the thing is, if we all stopped using VPNs, then we would have to be submitting ID to these various websites. So basically, either way, we either make what they're doing look good or we submit to it, and we become part of the problem by submitting our data to the government and, of course, to private companies. Now, like I said before, this is the government organizations and the general media lying about the efficacy of the Online Safety Act. Yes, some traffic from Google may have not been able to proceed and actually be sent to the websites, and maybe some people would be prohibited from watching that content. But we're not talking 40% like they're claiming. In reality, it's probably more realistically like 3%, and in the process of saving 3% of the people, which, by the way, to be very clear, out of all of those 3%, there's probably only about 1% that were actually children in the first place. But out of everything they're doing, we've now submitted our driver license, passports, and private information to private companies, which, by the way, have had a history of getting hacked. And yeah, it's very worrying. Now, I have been working on a full video investigating the Online Safety Act. We've scratched a few bits of the surface here, but behind the scenes, like if you look at what's happening right now on the dark web, the amount of online businesses that have been created purely around selling people's passports and driving license and even biometric scans on the dark web just from the past 3 weeks alone really speaks volumes of how ineffective the Online Safety Act is and how dangerous it is. Like, we are not secure as a country anymore. We're not. There's hundreds of thousands of people's IDs just being sold on the dark web now. And there was before, don't get me wrong, there was people's ID being cloned and, credit card information. This always existed and it's always been a problem. But rather than making it a thing that happened because someone was stupid and got scammed, it's now a thing that can be happened because someone sent an employee at one of these ID verification companies. You could send them a phishing email and get access to a whole database of information. So yeah, the government, journalists, and everyone else are totally misrepresenting the data. On top of that, they're twisting the narrative like this is some sort of force for good, when having a 90% bad thing that does a 10% good thing, if there's more bad than good, then you're not fixing the issue. And I'll say it for the 1 millionth time on this channel. Parents should be parents. When I was 8 or 9 years old and the internet as we know it today, we're just getting past the MSN Messenger phase, I would see naughty content on the internet, but I would know not to click on it because I knew that was wrong. I knew that I shouldn't be looking at that. And only when you become a teenager do you become more aware of that. Yes, I agree that overall corn is harmful. As like, gentlemen, if you're watching this right now, it does damage you. Watching pornography does damage you. But you should be able to decide for yourself to come to their own conclusion before you get vetted by the government. If you guys would like me to do a video about the harmful impacts of porn and also how social media is actually exploiting men and women with that content, let me know, because it's actually, well, I've actually done some work with people that did OnlyFans stuff before, so I'm and I quit because of a moral code I have. So yeah, let me know. Let me know if you want me to do a video on that, because I could do a whole expose on that. Anyway, thank you for watching. Once again, sign the petition down below against the Online Safety Act, and also check out Private Internet Access VPN. It's the only way that we can technically get around this, but you should definitely not be using a VPN to get around the Online Safety Act. I have to tell you that, otherwise my channel will be deleted. Do not use a VPN to get around the Online Safety Act. That'll work. Thank you for watching. See you all in the next one.